We're counting down the 10 butter brands Canadians should avoid at all costs, based on hidden recalls, corporate controversies, and ingredients nobody expects in a so-called simple staple. From ultra-processed imposters to brands linked with dangerous oversights, each spot on this list raises a fresh reason for concern. After the countdown, we will reveal 5 butters actually worth your money and trust. Let's begin the countdown with number 10. Plant-based butter alternatives line the shelves with labels promising health and sustainability, but the ingredient lists tell a different story. Most tub-style spreads are made with 70 to 80% refined vegetable oils like canola, soybean, or palm, blended with emulsifiers, preservatives, and artificial flavors. Some brands pack in more than 50 separate ingredients, compared to the simple mix of cream and salt found in traditional butter. Dietitians of Canada warn that ultra-processed spreads may actually raise health risks, not lower them, especially when industrial oils and additives replace real dairy. For anyone reaching for these products thinking they are a cleaner swap, the reality is far more complicated. Fromagerie Saint Laurent butter landed on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency high-risk recall list in October 2023. After routine testing found Listeria monocytogenes in a batch sold across Quebec. The agency classified it as a Class 1 recall, meaning the risk was considered serious. Listeria can cause severe illness, particularly in pregnant people, seniors, and people with weakened immune systems. No illnesses were reported, but the contamination prompted an immediate production halt and a full sweep of the facility's sanitation protocols. This case showed that even small local brands are not immune to dangerous lapses, and that food safety depends on more than just where a product is made. In 2023, PlantUp's butter chicken bites were pulled from shelves after the Canadian Food Inspection Agency found milk proteins missing from the ingredient label. For families managing dairy allergies, this kind of labeling error isn't just a technical slip, it's a real danger. One allergic reaction was reported before the recall, underscoring how even plant-based products can carry hidden risks. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency traced the problem to shared production lines where milk cross-contact wasn't properly controlled. While no further illnesses were confirmed, the incident exposed how quickly trust can break when allergen warnings fail. For allergy-aware shoppers, label accuracy is non-negotiable. Gay Lea's reputation leans on its image as a farmer-owned co-op, but recent events at the Brampton facility have raised new questions. In 2022 and 2023, workers organized with the Teamsters Union, citing concerns about excessive discipline, safety protocols, and pay rates that were below the industry average, around $20 an hour compared to $25 elsewhere. Ontario Labour Board filings detail claims of management surveillance and disputes over how injuries and workplace incidents were handled. While no official violations were confirmed, these reports stand in stark contrast to the brand's community-first marketing. For many shoppers, trust in a food brand is not just about what is in the package. It is also about how people are treated behind the scenes. When a company's public values do not match workers' experiences, that gap can be just as damaging as any ingredient label. In November 2024, Saputo's salted butter was swept into a nationwide recall after metal fragments were traced back to a contaminated batch of salt from Les Sels de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Over 50,000 units, including both consumer and bulk sizes, were flagged by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. The contamination started upstream when Sifto brand high-grade salt was found to contain small pieces of metal, a risk that carried through to finished products before detection protocols caught the issue. Saputo's recall was voluntary and no injuries were reported, but the incident exposed how even major processors can be blindsided by weaknesses in their supply chain. For shoppers, it is a reminder that food safety depends not just on the brand at the checkout, but on every ingredient and checkpoint behind the scenes. Beatrice butter stands out on store shelves with its classic red and white packaging and vintage cow logo, tapping into decades of nostalgia for Canadian families. But behind the old-fashioned look, the real story is about corporate consolidation. Beatrice has been owned by Saputo, a major multinational, since the 2010s. The same processing plants and supply chains often serve several brands even when the labels suggest variety. This practice, called brand layering, creates the illusion of choice, while most decisions, ingredients, sourcing, even recall actions, trace back to the same parent company. For shoppers, that means two butters with different labels might be churned out on the same line using the same ingredients under the same corporate oversight. Checking plant codes or ownership charts can reveal these hidden links, showing how marketing can mask just how little real choice exists in the dairy aisle. Natrel butter drew national attention during the 2021 Buttergate controversy, when home cooks and bakers across Canada reported that their butter had become unusually hard and difficult to spread. Food scientists pointed to a rise in the use of palm oil-based feed supplements on Canadian dairy farms, which increase the 16-to saturated fat content in milk and can raise the melting point of finished butter by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. Independent lab tests confirmed that, compared to pre-2021 samples, some natural butters required more warmth to soften. While palm supplements were used by an estimated 10 to 20% of producers, Natrel's public statements offered little clarity, leaving many consumers frustrated by the lack of transparency. Experts still debate whether feed changes, processing tweaks, or storage habits were most to blame, but the episode exposed just how quickly confidence can erode when a trusted staple stops performing as expected. President's Choice butter sits in nearly every Canadian grocery fridge, but what is inside the package can be a moving target. As a private label for Loblaws, President's Choice butter is not made by a single company. Instead, it is contracted out to whichever major processor wins the business that year. Shoppers who check the plant code on the wrapper might spot a different number from one season to the next, signaling a switch in production from a Quebec facility to one in Ontario. This kind of contract manufacturing means the source of the cream, the method of churning, and even the salt blend can all change without notice. Home bakers have reported sudden shifts in texture or taste, with some batches producing flaky pastry and others falling flat. For anyone relying on consistency, especially in recipes where butter quality matters, this opacity leaves more questions than answers. In the world of store brands, what you see on the label is not always what you get in the box. Organic meadow butter commands a premium price at the grocery store, often reaching $7 to $9 for a standard 454-gram block, nearly double the cost of most conventional butters. The brand leans on its organic credentials and farmer-owned co-op image, promising higher standards and sustainable practices. Yet beneath the label, critics point to a deeper problem rooted in Canada's supply management system. Since 2012, estimates suggest that about 6.8 billion liters of milk have been discarded across the country to keep production within government-set quotas. This system is designed to stabilize prices and protect farmers, but it also means that even organic producers can be forced to dump perfectly good milk when the market overshoots. For shoppers paying extra for a sense of ethical assurance, the reality is more complicated. High prices do not always guarantee efficiency or prevent waste. The debate over organic meadow highlights how national policy can shape what ends up in your cart and what never leaves the farm. Lactantia dominates the Canadian butter aisle, holding about 30% of the market. That reach makes its reputation matter more than any other brand. Behind the familiar red and gold packaging stands Lactalis, a French multinational with a long record of global expansion and, at times, controversy. Lactalis acquired Lactantia and its sister brand Beatrice in the 2010s, consolidating control over much of Canada's dairy processing. Decisions about sourcing, quality, and recalls now flow from corporate offices far beyond Canadian borders. Internationally, Lactalis has faced scrutiny for safety and compliance. In 2020, French authorities fined the company €100,000 for hygiene violations at a Normandy plant. Earlier, in 2017 and 2018, the company was linked to major listeria and salmonella recalls in Europe, with dozens of illnesses reported. While these incidents did not involve Canadian butter, they raised questions about oversight and accountability when a single corporation manages such a broad portfolio of brands across continents. Canadian advocates have pushed for more transparency, but answers remain vague when problems arise. For Canadian families, the result is a trust gap that goes beyond any one recall or ingredient list. When the country's most popular butter is steered by a distant parent company with a checkered enforcement history, confidence in safety, ethics, and transparency can wear thin. In a market shaped by consolidation and opacity, the biggest brand also carries the biggest exposure and the most to lose when trust falters. Across all 15 brands, one pattern stands out. Shortcuts in sourcing, safety, and transparency show up everywhere, even in a staple as simple as butter. For Canadians, choosing well is not just about taste, it is about trust. The real ingredient that matters is accountability.